Hello and welcome to today's video. Today is the last video in my spring makeup series. I hope you've enjoyed this, and today we have a fun one. We have, if I counted correctly, 6 eyeshadow looks to go through, some lipsticks to talk about, lots of stuff to see, so why don't we go ahead and jump into it. Okay, as we get started, I don't know if you're like me. There was a part of me that as we started this year, I really hope that pastels are back in because I really like the trend. I think it's super playful and fun, and I didn't get like good pastel palettes in my life last year, so I've kind of made up for that this year. I bought some pastels or rediscovered some pastels that I like for myself, and I'm like, fingers crossed that pastels are trended again. I think it is. And so I'm approaching pastels as someone who really adores them and like admires them on other people, but I'm also kind of afraid to wear them myself. So I actually had a lot of fun doing this video and trying to push myself to wear some color combinations and just colors in general that I might not ever have normally picked up and like only admired on other people. We'll start out with, if you're someone who's looking to get into pastels, I think the first and foremost thing to think about is that they pair so well with cool tone kind of colors. So maybe you're not ready for like colorful eyeshadow in terms of pastels, maybe that's a little bit intimidating for you, but you'd rather go for like a pastel lip. And I think the way that I like to wear pastel lips is definitely with cool tone eyeshadow, a big wing, some false lashes helps, and then just that kind of beautiful pastel color on your lips. I think it looks really intentional when you kind of balance it like that. So today I have 2 different pastel. These are probably the only pastels in my collection, but I figured I would mention them to you. The first one is from Maybelline. It's a matte formula in the shade Ravishing Rose, a beautiful kind of pink color. And I would definitely call this like a bit of a brighter pink, but still definitely has a white base on it. So it definitely pulls more pastel on me. This is one that I am intimidated by, but anytime that I wear it, especially if I do that more muted toned down eye with some lashes, I always feel confident in it. So I haven't gotten rid of this for that reason, even though I don't wear it a ton. I maybe wear it like once or twice a year. It's a fun little lip color if you're a little bit more confident in pastels than I am. And the next lip product I have here is NYX Ombre Lip Duo. I don't think they sell these anymore, which is kind of tragic because I really like the shade, but I think you can check websites like Temptalia and they have dupes and things listed. But this is the shade Poppy and Lily. I don't use the liner side. In fact, my liner broke and like fell on the floor a long time ago and it's long gone, but the like lipstick side of this is so beautiful. I think this is such a fun shade for spring. It's definitely got a little bit of a white base to it, but also it's so creepy and appropriate for like Halloween time too. I definitely had showed this one on my channel before. I believe you saw it in the fall color series video when I was kind of showing any and all purple kind of lipsticks that I had, but I figured since this is such a good kind of like a pastel leaning thing, has a little bit of that white base again, that I had to show it in this video too. Now before we move into the 6 looks for this video, I wanted to mention a couple looks that I'll maybe throw screenshots up of you've seen on me before, either in different videos or actually one of them was in the pink series, but I just had to mention that again, that kind of cool tone with pastel pops. Again, if you're not comfortable in like bright pastels like this, then maybe you need to start with like a cool tone brown in your crease, deepen out the outer corner, and then lay a beautiful pastel on your lids. I did that in the pink video with the pink look that you saw. Also, I have an old video that went up last spring. It was a beautiful eye look that just had that classic structure, and then on my inner corner and like lid, I faded in this like mint greenish kind of color and then a purple on the inner corner, and it just kind of faded it into itself. People like that look so much that I ended up doing a get ready with me, redoing that makeup look, so I'll link those videos if you're interested. But also another way that you could kind of add in a little pastel, now I don't think I have a photo of this one, it's just again doing a big wing liner, and instead of doing a pop of pastel on your lips, just putting a little bit of a pastel matte or shimmer into your inner corner, and like kind of tiptoeing into pastels by just adding a little pop in your inner corner or lower lash line would be such a beautiful way to do this. I wanted to try to do a look like that, but I honestly just ran out of time. I have to get this video filmed and uploaded and edited tonight, so apologies that I don't have an actual photo to show you of that look, but let's go ahead and get into the 6 looks that I do have for you. First look is coming from my Norvina palette. I decided to kind of work more into like very wearable things, and then we'll go get more extreme towards the end. But yeah, the Norvina palette, again, you've heard me talk about this just incessantly on this channel. Love this palette, but I wanted to kind of show off some of these beautiful pastels in this palette, and it was a super easy look, volatile in the crease just a little bit, and then in the outer corner as well. I took Soul in the outer corner to kind of deepen it up. Then from the inner corner kind of faded to the outer corner, we have Dreamer, just very lightly on the inner corner, faded to Wild Child, and it kind of goes from like light pink to purple, and it's just a nice, pretty easy way to wear pastels, and I think it's a very approachable look for pastels. So I wanted to mention this one here. I know you've heard me talk about this palette a ton lately, but honestly, how do you do a spring makeup series without including this palette multiple times? So moving into look number 2. Okay, for look number 2, I am reaching for my Ultimate Bright palette from NYX. Now this is one that I don't really love the quality of this palette. In fact, if I ever kind of get better rainbow colors in my collection, I will eventually let this go, because I really am only holding on to this palette for I like these purples here on the ends, and I like this yellow, and I like these 2 greens, but other than that, the palette as a whole doesn't really excite me. So when I get some better replacements of these greens and these purples, I'll probably say goodbye to this palette. But I wanted to push myself to reach for blues, and this has 2 kind of really nice turquoisey kind of minty blue shades that I wanted to use. I had to find a place to swatch them, but yeah. So what I ended up doing, knowing that I don't feel that comfortable in blues, honestly, I told Bill last night that when I wear blues, I feel like the lady from the Drew Carey show. Like, that's just how I feel in blues. So I wanted to kind of keep it toned down for this one. And what I kind of did is just use this deeper kind of bluish green tone shade as an outer corner wing. And then to kind of smudge that out over the top, I took that lighter mint shade and just kind of made it a little bit more diffused. And I kind of worked to build up color, because honestly, again, this palette isn't the best quality, but if you have it in your collection already, which I think a lot of people do, then you have some kind of pastel shades that you could be reaching for. So yeah, like I said, just kind of built these up to a point to build a pretty decent sized wing. I knew I wasn't going to put on lashes that day. If I was going to put on lashes, I probably would have gone a little bit more dramatic, and then I just threw on some mascara, and then I didn't just throw on mascara. I almost forgot to mention that I also thought it would be pretty to just take this shade. This is special delivery from ColourPop. It's a really cool kind of blue with a mint, it's an icy kind of blue minty kind of shade, and I just took a little bit of that on my ring finger and just kind of tapped it right on my lid really lightly, and just kind of used it to diffuse it out. I don't know if you'll be able to see that right there, but I thought the look turned out pretty well, considering I don't really love blues on me that much, especially these kind of minty colors. But yeah, I thought it was a very spring appropriate look, and actually I would probably wear this out, especially if I felt a little bit more confident by throwing some lashes on. I'm a full believer that a little bit of lash helps me just feel a little bit more put together and a little bit more intentional, and it makes me feel a lot more confident with bright eyeshadows. So I'm a fan of that, but yeah, I had to include this for look number 2. All right, moving into look number 3, we have the Beauty Bay Pastels palette. This was a palette that I picked up at the end of last year during their, I think it was the Black Friday sale. They had this on sale a good bit, and I had seen a couple people's reviews, and I definitely saw a lot of mixed reviews, people saying that it's very sheer, and I kind of knew what I was getting into, but I just don't have any pastels besides the NYX Ultimate Bright palette and the Norvina palette. I don't feel like I had pastels at the time, so I wanted some pastel mattes. I would like some pastel shimmers, but I haven't really seen any that I've fallen in love with. So I decided, for the price at the time, this was gonna be fun to play with enough to see if I really like pastels, and then in the future, if I really found that I really enjoyed them, that I could look to buy better quality ones. Even some of the ones like the Creepy Cute palette and some of those, I think the Menagerie Cosmetics one, a couple of indie brands who have released pastel palettes over the last year or so, they look beautiful, but I find that I don't always love the tones in them, and if I don't love all of them, then I don't. If they have a lot of these kind of turquoisey blues, I'm turned off by the palette. So for me, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give it a try, see if I like it. And to throw in a quick review of it, it's definitely not perfect, but it's okay for me right now. I'm not someone who's gonna venture into pastel looks all the time, so I feel like I can cover a lot of ground with this little palette. And you know, in the future, if I see one that I really like and I know is gonna be better quality, I'll probably replace this. But for now, it serves what I want it to serve. Let's get to the look. I wanted to try to push myself to try some color combinations, because I'm typically super comfortable in a blown out, put a matte down all over the place, maybe throw on a wing liner, and I feel very confident in that kind of look, but color combinations kind of scare me a little bit. And I was looking on Pinterest, and also I got a little bit of inspiration from Rebecca Morgan of this beautiful kind of placement of shadow, and then also the color combination idea came from Pinterest, but the shadow placement came from Rebecca Morgan. And so what I ended up doing is kind of building up this golden hour shade on my lid, kind of like an orangey, and I actually think I used a little bit of my Baby Got Peach palette to just make sure it wasn't too bright orange. I wanted it to pull a peachy orange. And then in like a little pop of color here and a pop of color on the outer corner, I used this kind of mint shade here called Days. And these were a lot of fun to pair together. I don't think the look looks that great when I look back at the footage, but it's because that kind of look is so bold that I really probably needed to balance it out on myself with some lashes, and I think I would have felt a little bit more confident in it. I don't think it turned out bad. I just think I would have felt a little bit more like comfortable in it had I had some lashes on. But ultimately, I did really like the color combination. I thought it was really fun, and I could see myself repeating something like that in the future. Now, speaking of matte blown out looks that I feel super comfortable in, that's actually look number 4, and it also comes from the Beauty Bay Pastels palette. Super easy look. Now, what I almost forgot to mention is that when I do wear these pastel shades, I end up having to change up my eyeshadow base. Typically, I'd use like an eyeshadow primer like the Urban Decay one, or something like a concealer, but I find when I use pastels that I tend to do better when I use white concealers. Something that's a really, really light eyeshadow base, and then I can kind of build up some color without setting. I don't set my eyeshadow primer. Typically I set any and all eyeshadow primer with like a just translucent or something close to my skin tone shade. And for these, I wanted to recommend, I have both of these, the ColourPop, like the white no filter concealer, pretty good. I bought it specifically for these kinds of looks, but also one day I was using this to like lighten up a foundation, and I ended up just putting it on my eyelid to wear one of these like looks. And this thing probably had more coverage than this. So if you want an eyeshadow to pop more than even this one does, then this one's a great little option. And a lot of people have these kind of like white foundations already in their collection because they use them to lighten up other foundations. So if you have a white foundation in your concealer, you could try using that for kind of pastel bases. But yeah, this look was super easy to do. It was a white base. I used this Daydream lilac-y purple down here all over my lid. I blew it up into my crease, and it took, now this one, even though it's beautiful, it did take some slow building. You have to kind of use a dense brush and kind of pack it on. I do think the footage, it ends up looking a little dry, but in person that day, it was, I think the footage just makes it look like that. In person that day, it did look a little dry because it is a matte look, but it didn't look like unappealing or too dry. What am I trying to say? Anyways, this was kind of blown out all over the place. A one color, one and done look, and then a dark black eyeliner. Really, really, really enjoyed this look, and I totally see myself repeating this one again very soon. All right, we're in the home stretch. Look number 5, last 2, look number 5, and then look number 6. Look number 5 comes from my Solmona palette. You would have seen me do this in a Get Ready With Me that I recently posted. Beautiful palette, and I was so surprised by this purple here. Such a great pigmented shadow. This is one that I honestly might try to redo that like purple lilac shade with instead, because this one is more pigmented than the Beauty Bay Pastel palette. Like this one definitely builds up so much better than this one, and I think they're really, really similar in tone. So this one was a super easy look. I put that purple on my inner and outer corner, and then I used this light gold over here on my lid and just kind of did a little bit of like a halo eye. Such a beautiful color scheme and like story, and I definitely will wear this one again this fall. Not fall, spring. I have a feeling that I've been saying fall like a million times at this point, but anytime, if I've said fall, I probably meant spring. My bad. All right, last look, look number 6. This is the look that I'm currently wearing. Let me zoom you in for a second. All right, we are zoomed in. I have to admit, I'm really, really feeling this look today. I started with a white base again on my eyes, and it sheers out, like it doesn't look stark white. It sheers out a little bit more. It's just a little bit lighter of a base than like a concealer would give you. And so on my outer corner, I kind of built up this shade here in Lovesick, and then on my inner corner, I built up this green, and then on my lid, I actually have this super old glitter top coat kind of shadow from ColourPop in the shade Rainbow, and it's supposed to be like a white glitter, and it definitely is, but on my lid it ends up pulling a little purple. I do remember back in the day, I think this has a little bit of a blue glitter in it, but it also has, it's just kind of a white glitter too. Like I never would have, until today's look, I never would have thought of it as a blue glitter. But yeah, this is the one that I have on my lid, and I really, 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 really like how the look turned out, like so much. Now I know that ColourPop doesn't make that shade anymore. In fact, this was like the first Hello Kitty collaboration they ever did, which was a long time ago. My shadow is a little bit chunkier now, but it hasn't dried out, so I'm gonna keep using it until I can't anymore. But I wanted to kind of pull out a couple of different shades in my collection that I think would be similar to this. Now, if you have a white shimmer shade, I'm sure it would look beautiful. This one, the Saharan palette by Juvia's Place, the shade Iman here, it has like a white base but like a blue shift to it, and I wanted to kind of swatch these. These kind of reminded me of each other, and obviously the ColourPop shade's just a little bit more glittery, but that definitely has that white base blue shift that I think you could repeat a look like this. Another palette that had one of those kind of white shifty dupes potentially is the Night and Day palette from Makeup Revolution or Revolution Pro, and it has, this is the dupe for the Pat McGrath, one of the Pat McGrath palettes, and it has this kind of sheer white shade, but it has a very strong blue glitter to it, and I've swatched it right there. This shade is stunning. I bet it would look insane over this look, but also just a shout out to this palette. This is one of my favorite cooler tone palettes. This like transition shade is probably my go-to cool tone transition shade when I'm creating a look, and anytime I also am wearing like a cool tone pop of color on my lip, I'll tend to just put this in my crease, this all over my lid, this duochrome shade right here, and maybe deepen up my outer corner with like these two shades. But this one, I really enjoy this palette. Got it last year and I have really enjoyed it so far. But before I set it down, I do think I should say, obviously not the Pat McGrath quality, and I do have like some gripes when it comes to formula. You have to work to build things a little bit more, but for the price difference, really liking it. And then the last palette that I wanted to mention is not technically a dupe, but if you wanted to kind of switch it up, the Weekend Festival palette by BH Cosmetics has a shade called Spirit, and this one, instead of pulling blue, it's a white base shade that pulls a little bit blue and a little bit more purple, and I wanted to swatch it for you too, because I think all of these shades could have been interchangeable for this look, and it would have turned out very well. But yeah, that is everything for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the series. I know when I look back on it, I honestly, when I did the fall color series, I did not anticipate people enjoying it or even thinking about doing it other seasons. So when people have been kind of asking for more and more, I feel so flattered. And I look back at this series in particular, and I like most of the looks that I came up with. Now, the purple video, I admit, when I watched that video back, I go, I didn't work hard enough to vary those looks. They all ended up looking too similar, but I hope today that I gave you some variation and made up for it a little bit. I definitely pushed myself outside of my comfort zone with some of these looks, but I think that they really got me super excited for spring, and I hope these videos do the same for you. Make sure you let me know if you have a pastel palette that you really like, and make sure you say hello in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.